What's going on, everybody? Happy Monday to you. December 22nd, semifinal week, nearly over. It's never what you expect. It's never the guys that you count on. It's never simple in the fantasy playoffs. But we're here. Hopefully you have some teams that made it through to the finals or at least have a chance tonight. But we're going to recap everything from week 17. Appreciate you guys coming to hang out. Apologize there wasn't a stream last week, just life stuff, just a little too busy. I'd like to get one this week and next week to close out the Dynasty season. And then we'll see. You know, there'll be live streams here and there. We'll see how the offseason is looking. But yeah, we're going to talk about week 16. It was crazy. Stressful, a lot on the line here. I see some members in the chat. Yellow Dog is here, ready to go. Russell's here. Jay, Mamana, a lot of the members ready to hang out. Dave is here. Dynasty Dave. Loyal live stream attendee. This is crazy, by the way. I saw this. I don't know if this is the same instance that I saw or this happened for someone else, but losing on the Drake May kneeling and then winning on the rushing play. That's the crazy stuff that fantasy football dreams or nightmares are made of, depending on which side of that you are. I know one of our members, shout out to Austin, was in need of 3 points, or even less than 3 points, 2-point-something points from Travion Henderson, and he ends up losing by like 0.19 points because Henderson gets a concussion in the first quarter. It really sucks when that stuff happens, but hopefully it all comes out even eventually. You know, you benefit from some crazy variance, you lose from some. The losses hurt more than the wins. Well, there is definitely a cognitive bias there, something about like downside bias or something, like losing something that you have is worse than like not getting something that you could have had or something like that. I don't know. There's a mental reason for it, but yes, the losses do hurt for sure, and they seem to outweigh the wins sometimes. But yeah, if you guys could go down and like the stream real quick, if you don't mind. If you're watching this on replay and you're not a subscriber, get subscribed because we're doing Dynasty content every week. That does not stop when the season's over. We're going to keep going. We're going to have strategy. We're going to have rankings. We're going to have buys and sells, certainly in the early off season. Dynasty is year round, guys. I'm here year round. So make sure you're subscribed. Let's talk, guys. Let's just talk about what happened. If you need to vent about what happened to you in the semifinals, you can do that in the chat. You can talk about what you need tonight on Monday Night Football. I'm going to get into our data drop for the day. Some tweets that I found interesting from just accounts that I that like to aggregate stats. I noticed that the fantasy points data suite, for whatever reason, was not updated for the Sunday slate. So I wasn't able to look up some things that I would have otherwise liked to check, certain like route participations and stuff. I don't know why that's the case, but it only has the up to the Saturday games in the database. So I'm not as informed as usual on all of the smaller, underlying stuff, but plenty to talk about today. So we'll go over to the data here. And I want to start by talking about Chase Brown, who is neither a riser nor a seller for me. He was certainly one of the heroes of the semifinals. If you had him, he was the opposite if you were facing him. And he has 3 touchdowns in this game against the Dolphins, played really well. I just want to talk about Chase Brown and kind of where I'm at with him. My opinion of him hasn't changed much, and I wouldn't consider him a riser off of this game because everything kind of resets when the season is over, and there's not really anything guaranteed for him long term. But just to know, over the last 4 weeks with Samaje Perine back, Chase Brown has carried the ball 52% of the time, 67%, 48%, and 52% in the backfield carries. But Brown leads the Bengals in red zone targets and points per game over this span. and he gets an easy matchup against the Cardinals next week. So certainly you're going to fire him up. You're going to feel good about that. The role for Brown is kind of interesting in that he's not a real workhorse. He's splitting with Pirine. Pirine actually gets a lot of the like pass protection stuff, but Chase Brown has gotten a ton of early down targets from Joe Burrow. It's a very lucrative role. And if this exact backfield configuration holds, he's going to be a great value next year. Well, I mean, he probably won't be a value in redraft. People will be drafting him highly. He'll be a good dynasty value where he is right now if this holds. The only issue is that there's no guarantee that that happens. It's very difficult to kind of pick out exactly which fragile so-called running backs are going to be replaced or are going to get competition in the offseason. Like last offseason, I was saying, hey, Ramondre Stevenson seems like a decent, cheap buy, right? And then, we get to the draft and they take a running back in the second round. I didn't think they would do that. I thought they had plenty of other needs. I still think that they did have plenty of other needs to address, but they go ahead and take Henderson. We don't know what teams are going to do. Does it seem like the Bengals should roll with Chase Brown and take defensive players? Sure, they probably should, but he's not a particularly good rusher of the football. He's not bad, but he's not a value adding player there. He is a 5th round pick. He's not a guy that's under like a long-term contract. I believe he's entering the last year of his deal next season. So I guess we'll get some clarity whether or not he gets an extension. My only point is Chase Brown might be a guy that I would just see about potentially flipping in the early offseason if he's going to be valued as if this is what he is next year. In other words, if someone's giving you, a 2027 first, if someone's giving you a 2026, 107 or something, I'm probably just going to re-roll knowing, there's a chance that he is a high scoring running back next year. There's also a chance that he loses a lot of value if the backfield gets shaken up. So that's just something I wanted to put out there. I think with these running backs that finish the season on a high note, people can kind of be blinded to some of the uncertainty that surrounds them, and they can get propped up over guys that are similarly risky that end up being better values. Then I want to talk about Kenny Gainwell here. This tweet says, while Jalen Warren scored 21 of his 29 points on 2 45-yard touchdowns, Kenneth Gainwell hit a 17% target share for the 5th time over his last 6 games. He is the RB10 by weighted opportunities over this span, averaging 19 points per game. The Kenny Gainwell thing has been absurd and insane. It's like so out of left field when we spent the whole summer arguing about Warren and Caleb Johnson, who's going to be the main guy here. It's actually Kenny Gainwell. Not at all what I saw coming. Hats off to anybody that did see this coming. I don't think it was too predictable that this coming. Like, you think about how Gainwell was used with the Eagles. He was only a long down and distance specialist. He was never a very good rusher. He's still not a very good rusher. He's definitely broken some long plays, and he's been put in a good spot in this Arthur Smith offense. Down to down, I think Jalen Warren is a far superior rusher of the football, but he's a very capable pass catcher, and clearly Aaron Rodgers has singled this guy out as somebody that he likes, and it's a very unique Rodgers type of thing that Rodgers just like chooses a guy, right? Like it's Alan Lazard, it's Randall Cobb, it's whoever over the years, and this is his guy, and he's going to get him the ball. Somehow Kenny Gainwell has like wriggled his way into the good graces of Aaron Rodgers, and it has been a fantasy goldmine, and he's been very startable. Whether you had the courage to start him, I don't know. You certainly should fire him up next week against the Browns. But what I want to say about Gainwell is like, first of all, if you're in a league that doesn't have a trade deadline and you are not using Kenny Gainwell right now, you should be trying to trade him to whoever is in the championship, because this whole thing, this is a daydream. It's a mirage. Like, this is not sticky. This is not like, oh, Kenny Gainwell is actually the GOAT and we just didn't know it until right now. The second Aaron Rodgers walks out that door, this Kenny Gainwell thing is so over. Like, it's unbelievably over. I don't know. Someone said Kenny Gainwell free agent. I don't know if he is or he isn't. He's not going to go to a new team and do this. He's not going to stay on the Steelers and do this unless Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback. Now, that could happen, but I'm just saying this is like a lightning in the bottle situation. And if you are not using Kenny Gainwell right now and you have the opportunity to trade him, to someone who would use him, I think you would be well served to do that. So just want to put that out there. Certainly been a fun story. He's like in the top 10 of all players in targets per route run. And the list is like him and then all of the best wide receivers in the NFL. It's like Puka Nacua, JSN, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Kenny Gainwell. He looks very out of place. But yeah, it's been cool. I mean, it's been wild. Just that's how I feel about Gainwell at this point. And then the last one, there's nothing actionable here. This just shows how absurd fantasy football is, Dynasty is. Josh Allen, 7.1 fantasy points today. His lowest in a full game since his rookie season. Since 2018, we're talking like over 90 games here. We get his lowest output in a game where the Bills moved the ball pretty well, scored 3 touchdowns. He doesn't get any of those touchdowns. Dawson Knox drops a 4th down catch in his hands in the end zone in the 4th quarter. I screamed at my TV when that happened. I had Allen in a couple of spots. It's possible that this game will cost me one of those matchups, though it would have been tough either way, depending on what McCaffrey does tonight. I was also fortunate to face Allen in several matchups that I might not have won otherwise. So, it is what it is. You got to roll with the punches. It's nice being in a lot of leagues sometimes because when you get screwed by a player having a bad game, it can at least potentially benefit you somewhere else. So just a very random game. That's the variance is cranked up to 11 in single week elimination formats. And everything is so highlighted because it's win or go home. And so it really does ramp up the randomness. It's easy to get discouraged when that randomness doesn't go your way. And I understand that. You just have to understand that that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. And it's such a small sample game that you have to be okay with that happening to you and hope that over the long run, good process, good decision-making is going to work out in your favor, right? Like benching Josh Allen for Cam Ward would not have been a rational decision to make, even though it could have won you a matchup. It just, there was no way to think to do that. So, and on that note, I did want to talk about win now trades, specifically a league that I'm in, a team that I made 3 trades that I would categorize as win now deals. And I want to highlight this because I don't think any of them are bad trades, but I want to highlight how a win now deal does not guarantee you anything, and that you should be careful about making those trades, and you shouldn't feel obligated to ship off tons and tons of value to go and get name brand players that are projected for lots of points, because so much can happen. Like anything can happen in a 1 week sample. So I just want to show you this, and I don't know, if this will be valuable to you or not, but I think it's interesting. This is a league, a 12 team start 11 league, Superflex, PPR, 1.0 tight end premium league. And I made these 3 deals. One of them, so the Jacobs trade, I'm going to talk about all 3 of these deals. The Jacobs trade I made like probably 7 weeks ago, like a while back, because the only running backs I had on my team were Ashton Genty and Jalen Warren. And, Jalen Warren had a nagging injury at one point. I was starting like Michael Carter, and Genty was having some rough games. I was like, I should probably have another running back because this is a good team. I'm going to make the playoffs, and I don't want to just be stuck without a running back. And this was the best deal I could find. It's just to trade my own 2026 first for Josh Jacobs. And then again, this is a 1.0 tight end premium league. Keep that in mind. Tight ends score a ton of points in this format. George Kittle is projected for 20 tonight. So just keep that in mind in valuing these deals. But I made 2 trades this week leading up to my semifinal matchup because I had a bye week. I was the 2 seed, 1 seed or 2 seed. I don't know. I had a bye week. I made these 2 deals coming out of the bye week because I had a pretty tough looking opponent. I traded Gadsden, a second, and Dontavian Wicks for Nico Collins. And then I also traded JJ McCarthy, a 27 second and a 27 fourth for George Kittle. And, I think I got solid value in these deals. You can say whether you think so or not. But what I want to point out here is that none of these trades helped me win the matchup. So I did, in fact, win my matchup. I am going to the finals. None of these trades helped me do it. Josh Jacobs, as you know, scored 4 points, and I played Josh Jacobs over Jalen Warren, who scored, I don't know, near 30 points, 25 points. I started Nico Collins, who scored, 8 points, 9 points, over Juwan Jennings, who averages more than that. And George Kittle hasn't played yet, and I've already won the matchup by 20. So I literally don't even need him. I could put him on my bench, whatever. I could play nobody there. I don't need George Kittle. So I made 3 trades to help me win my league, and none of these trades have made any difference on my playoffs so far. I had to buy the first week. I didn't need any of these guys. The second week, in fact, Jacobs was an active detriment to my team. We'll see what happens in the finals. Jacobs could very easily be out. I might start Jalen Warren over him. But I just think it's interesting that this is the case. I don't think any of these are bad trades. If I could take back the Jacobs one, I probably would, but it's just, you might find the temptation, if you're in a league with no trade deadline, to really leverage yourself and put yourself in a bad spot. Trade your 2027 first away for a player that's just simply not worth it. And I just want to encourage you to maybe lean into the unknown and the variance a little bit, and understand that, the difference between a player projected for 18 points and 14 points, it's just not that significant in a 1 week sample. So that's my whole rant about win now trades. I made a lot of those this week, but I try to be very cautious to make deals that I'm okay with in a value wise in a vacuum, and not deals that I'm going to massively regret if I lose my matchup, that I'm not going to massively regret if those players don't score. So yeah, something to think about. I love this trade for you, by the way. C. Nichols 86, Jacobs in a mid second for Burden and the 109. I think that's a great trade for you. Kevin, by the way, I didn't see this earlier. What's up? Merry Christmas. Happy to have you here on the stream. Matty Ice, after making these moves, did they impact your ability towards getting a buy? So I only traded for Kittle and Nico this past week while I was literally on buy. So they didn't do anything for me. Jacobs I traded for 7-8 weeks ago. I actually wrote down that I want to go back through all the matchups and see if Josh Jacobs impacted a singular matchup that I had this season. I'm guessing no. Just knowing what he scored and how those games tended to go that I was in. But yeah, I would love to see if he actually made any impact at all on my fantasy season. It's an interesting thing to think about. You might make a trade for a guy that scores a ton of points and think that was obviously a trade that helped you. And then you can go back through the game log and be like, actually, his good weeks, I didn't really need him. And then his bad weeks obviously hurt me. Like I won a semifinal this week with Puka Nacua. I could have benched Puka and still won the matchup. Like that's just how it goes sometimes. So, yeah. So it's interesting. We're going to get into risers and fallers here, though. Obviously, we got to do that. Now, we didn't have a show last week, so just know that this is really 2 weeks of risers and fallers. So I'm going to try to cover both weeks that are relevant for these players, because this is week 15 and week 16. Some players are risers based more on what they did previously. Some players are more risers based on this past week. So we'll talk about it, risers and fallers. There's a lot of high profile names on this list. I feel like we had gotten into kind of a lull towards the end of the regular season, and now we have a lot of movement in terms of injuries, in terms of players just kind of changing our expectations for them. Tatum does have a question on trade deadlines. What do you think about deadlines? Week 14, can't really relate to win now. Yeah, so I'm in favor of trade deadlines. I joined a lot of Dynasty leagues when I was not in favor. And there's a subsection kind of the Dynasty community that's very anti-deadline, likes the true sickos. They want to be able to trade all the time. And I used to be like that and think, trading all the time is good. It creates more activity. I'm in favor of deadlines once the playoffs start. Week 13, week 14, I think is probably the best time for a deadline. And I think the reason for that is just for enjoyment's sake. Like, I'm in a ton of leagues. I see my my opponents, acquiring like a Christian McCaffrey or a Mike Evans or a Cortland Sutton or whatever, like 2 days before the matchup. I just don't, that's just like demoralizing and frustrating when you think you kind of have the math worked out in your head on these matchups. And I feel obligated to like hustle and work every single angle to try to get a trade done. And it's honestly just exhausting, but it also kind of changes the incentives of the league where you're kind of better off just going almost all in or going like full bore as long as you can until you're eliminated. And then if you lose in the first round of the playoffs, like you can probably turn around and trade your best players to somebody else, pick up some draft picks, and you can kind of get out of it. You don't really have to make a choice. I like the idea of having to kind of make a choice, decide what you're going to do. And I think it kind of honestly punishes people that are proactive in rebuilding because they sell their players off early when there is not a lot of incentive for people to buy. So they're not getting the best returns. And if they do hold a lot of players, by the time that, like, if there's no deadline, people are only going to buy when they feel like they have to buy. And then when they feel like they have to buy, they're only going to want to buy the high-end players. So I find that kind of those mid-range guys that are like useful but not needle moving, they just don't get traded as much in non-deadline leagues because nobody really wants to pay for them when they don't have to. They're like, I can always get bailed out by a trade later, so I don't need depth. I don't need like extra bodies. So I think week 13, week 14 is definitely better. My leagues are kind of split down the middle. Like half of them have deadlines, half of them don't. Either one can work, can be a fun experience, but yeah, I do lean a little bit more towards having one. All right, let's talk risers and fallers here. Here's our list of risers. It was a really, really good week to have a name that starts with T, especially TR. Got a lot of TRs on this list, starting with Trevion Henderson, who is not a riser based on his concussion in week 16, but is a riser based on his incredible performance in week 15 against the Bills. I mean, you can argue, that game is really more a reflection on the Bills' run defense and how bad it is. I just think we need to wrap our heads around what the upside is for Trevion Henderson, the type of pass catcher that he can be paired with his ridiculous speed. Like he had two over 50-yard touchdown runs where he was literally untouched. You can't do that. I don't care how bad a defense is. You cannot do that if you are not lightning fast. And that is just an element to his game that you can't take away. And he's gotten so much better at the little stuff as well to create those plays. So he's a riser for me. The injury is not a big deal. Like obviously concussions are bad, but he's not going to miss significant time. He is now my Dynasty RB5 behind Devon Achane, right next to Amari and Hampton. I moved him. He's just ahead of Hampton for me. I think you could argue for either guy, but I'm slightly in favor of Henderson at this point. And yeah, I don't think a buy window is going to creak open because he had a head injury or because Ramondre Stevenson played some snaps. But if one does, he's one of the guys that I absolutely want to be adding to teams. Because this offense, I think this offensive situation is only going to get better. The run blocking can only get better. You have Drake May, and he's been doing this without even being like a full-blown workhorse. He doesn't need to be because he can catch the ball. He can break long plays. So I think Trevion Henderson, borderline top 25 asset. I have him at, hold on. The numbers are not updated here. Let me see. I'm in the middle of updating the ranking sheet. He is 25th overall in my rankings at this point. So that's pretty good, I would say. We've also got James Cook here as a running back riser. Another great game for James Cook. Not really new information, and the Browns have been giving up RB1 performances like Halloween candy for quite a while. I think they've let 5 running backs in a row put up 17 points on them, so this is nothing new. But I do want to highlight James Cook here because I feel like I've been just a little bit slow on James Cook. And I think he definitely needs... I am not sure where the right place is for him to land, but he is one of the best running backs in the league, and I think we need to start or I need to start treating him like one. So I'm going to get back to him in a second. We've got a super chat here from Justin Johnson. I appreciate you, dude. Thank you so much for sending that in. You've got a question. Would you trade Bijan for Hampton, the 104 and a 27 first? Yeah, I 100% would do that. I don't think it even matters what the league format is, what the settings are. That is just simply too good a return to pass up for nearly any player. But yeah, I mean, the 104, you're going to get an incredible wide receiver prospect there. The 27 first could be anywhere. Like, that could be an asset. In 2 years' time, if that pick ends up being early, that's going to be an asset that we're valuing close to, wherever a 25-and-a-half-year-old Bijan Robinson is being valued. So that is a deal I think you have to take. I certainly would in your position. And thanks again for the chat. So yeah, I'm working on where to put James Cook in the rankings. He's my RB8 at the moment. And what I'm struggling with is why there would be a large gap, if any gap, between James Cook and Jonathan Taylor. I think it's an interesting question because they score in similar ways. James Cook is 26 years old as of September. Jonathan Taylor is going to be 27 in January. So James Cook is about 8 months younger. They score about the same way. You can look at the rushing leaderboard. Obviously, Taylor's been hampered by the injury to Daniel Jones. But at the same time, the uncertainty in that offense is part of the package with Jonathan Taylor. James Cook has Josh Allen. He will always have Josh Allen. They're both guys that don't really catch a lot of passes, but do score a lot of touchdowns. I don't know if I can really justify there being any gap whatsoever between James Cook and Jonathan Taylor. I don't. And so I guess I'm not sure if that means Jonathan Taylor needs to go down from where I've had him ranked, or if James Cook needs to go up. It's probably a meet in the middle situation. But either way, I mean, he is handsomely paid. He is an elite rusher, arguably, top 3 rusher in the NFL. And he keeps putting up these numbers. It's kind of undeniable at this point, right? He's not going to be a Bijan. He's not going to be a Gibbs because he doesn't catch as many passes. I don't think his absolute ceiling is as high unless that part of his game changes. But yeah, I mean, would you take Tyler Warren or Emeka Ibuka over James Cook at this point? I don't think I would. Would you take, would you take Jordan Love over James Cook? I don't think I would. I just don't know, what is the point? Just don't know what the point is of those players over Cook. Like, what do we think is going to change for this guy? Like, he's not old. He's going to be in his age 27 season next year. His upside is, scoring 20 touchdowns and leading the league in rushing. So I don't know. I'm going to keep thinking on it. He's definitely going to remain my RB8. He's not going to jump Hampton or Henderson for me. Just the age difference is too significant. And I don't think he'll jump Taylor for me, but he should be right there with him. Probably somewhere in the like 35 to 40-ish overall range, I think, is probably where he belongs. So, Condrano says he'd lean Taylor. Assuming the Colts don't do something stupid with their quarterback. I mean, I just don't know what their options are. They can bring back Daniel Jones. He's not going to be the same, I don't think, year one post-Achilles. There's nothing on the free agent market. Like Marcus Mariota and Malik Willis are probably the best free agent quarterbacks available. And I guess, Malik Willis would be an efficiency hack for Taylor as a mobile quarterback. I don't know how good that offense would be. Trade-wise, are they going to bring in Kyler Murray? I don't know. James Cook has Josh Allen, and he's going to have Josh Allen. And yes, Taylor has hit higher total yards because he's broken off a few more long runs. I don't know. I mean, James Cook is getting a workload this year after his contract extension that he simply wasn't getting last season. So I think it's you can't really compare anything other than this year to any other years. James Cook just wasn't getting the same type of usage before. Now he is. So anyway, what are the M Rogers? Enlighten me here. If you're looking to buy a running back, I'd much rather pay for the cheaper elite options. Do you mean Cook and Taylor when you say that? Or do you mean someone else that you'd buy instead of Cook and Taylor? Because I feel like the way that the running back position has shaken out as of late, there's an upper class and then there is a massive, and I mean massive, void where there's like really nobody. There's players that are going to pop up in spurts, like a Chase Brown, like a Travis Etienne for stretches of the season. But gone are the days when you could just go and buy an older elite running back. Like Derrick Henry's not that guy anymore. Christian McCaffrey's not cheap anymore. I don't think Josh Jacobs is really that guy anymore. Maybe when healthy, he can get back to being, I don't know, 85% of a James Cook. But it's a weird spot for the running back position where there's like clearly an upper class that you think you have to pay for, and then there is the rest. So it's going to be an interesting offseason, kind of figuring out where that sweet spot is. Let's continue here with the risers, get to Trevor Lawrence. I had mentioned Lawrence as a riser, I think the last time we did this exercise, but since then he's put up 6 touchdowns against the Jets and then 4 touchdowns against the Broncos. 2 ridiculous games for Trevor Lawrence, and he's really starting to look like, you know, the 101, the generational quarterback prospect he was built to be. I went back and watched, I watched the entire Jaguars game again today. He looks awesome. He looks awesome. And you can't even say like, oh, like last week you could have just said, oh, it was the Jets, whatever. This is the Broncos, guys. I don't know how you can write any of this off. We're talking about a 5 or 6 week stretch now of legitimately elite production and performance from Trevor Lawrence. I think he has truly turned a corner. And I think, you know, you give Liam Cohen a lot of credit for that and his offensive scheme. But having Jacoby Myers, Brenton Strange, Brian Thomas, even Parker Washington, Travis Hunter next year, this is a really good situation that he's in. He's young. He's on a long-term deal. I'm honestly really frustrated because I was one of the last holdouts. I was one of the last men standing on actually Trevor Lawrence's good island. And I had just finally capitulated and said, you know what, guys, you're right. He's not that good. He's actually just Derek Carr. He's actually just Derek Carr with great hair. And immediately after I put that on the internet, he decided to look like Trevor Lawrence, the good version of Trevor Lawrence again. So I'm a little pissed off about the timing. But I was a big defender of Lawrence for a long time, so I'm gonna chalk this up as a partial W, even though I did sort of kind of fold. We can just pretend that didn't happen. At this point, I think Lawrence needs to be valued at least alongside. You know, we can talk about how far ahead, near the quarterbacks in Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, Bo Nix. That is I think the company he keeps at this point as a dynasty quarterback. You can talk about Caleb Williams. What's the gap between him and Caleb? That's certainly a matter up for debate, but he's a dynasty QB1 for me now. And it's surprising. You know, I thought we were kind of past the point where that was possible, but apparently not. So good for him. I did take him in a startup last week in the 5th round. Feeling pretty good about that now with the trajectory he's on. So at least that's a win. Chris Olave is next. Another player that I defended for a long time. You should have, if you are a longtime follower of this channel, you should have Chris Olave. Simple as that. You should have Chris Olave. I told you to buy him. I don't know how many times. 3, 4, 5 times. A lot of times. Chris Olave has always been sick. He's always been awesome. He had concussion issues. He had bad quarterback issues. This guy has, I believe, the same number of targets on the season as Puka Nacua. seems kind of good to me. He's got over 16 points per game. He just put up over 30 points in the Dynasty semifinal matchup. I mean, times are good for Chris Olave. He's 25 years old. And I think at this point, the question is, what kind of gap, if any, exists between Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson? Garrett Wilson consistently has been treated as a far superior wide receiver. He's been ranked higher, been valued higher. Garrett Wilson's never had a season as good as the season that Chris Olave is currently having. Tyler Shuck, I don't know if he's elite, but he's good enough to support fantasy weapons. Chris Olave had a great game. Juwan Johnson had a great game in this one. 8 for 89. So he has a quarterback that's at least viable, and he's showing us right now what kind of a target hog he can be. He has Kellen Moore, who's going to keep that passing game up tempo. You can see how the Eagles' weapons have fallen off with Kellen Moore gone this year. So, M. Rogers, I'm actually I am totally Tyler Shuck pilled, and honestly, I should have put him on here. He was on this list the last time we did this 2 weeks ago. I didn't want to have a bunch of repeats. He was already a riser for me, but he's continuing to rise. So honestly, we should talk about him. Why don't we just talk about him real quick while we are on the subject of Chris Olave? I have moved Tyler Shuck up to my 88th overall player, and I'm actually still not, I haven't finalized that yet. He is my, he actually needs to rise even more, a little bit more. He's going to be on that verge of top 80 as an asset in the QB 20, QB 23, QB 24 conversation. I drafted him as well in my startup in the 8th or 9th round, I think, last week. I took him after Bryce Young was off the board, after Kyler Murray was off the board. I'm kind of Tyler Shuck pilled. I'm going to be honest with you. I think if we removed, I think for some people he's become a meme, and I understand why. He's super old. He was like a weird pick. If you were to take the name Tyler Shuck away and all the jokes about his age, and you just looked at what he's done, what he's put on paper here in his rookie season, he just won again this week. Yeah, they blew out the Jets. He's now over 500 as a starter on a team that could not win games before he was on the field. He has looked good. He's got some mobility. He's done pretty well, avoiding disastrous plays. I don't know that he's elite at any one thing, but I think he's pretty good at everything. He's going to be the starter for this team next year. Again, I just mentioned Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore runs a high volume offense, high play volume. And I think that's a floor raiser for sure. For Shuck, he's had some very useful fantasy weeks, even with pretty lackluster weaponry, like Chris Olave and a lot of random dudes. Certainly nothing viable in the backfield, nothing viable at wide receiver 2. I did not think this guy was for real. I totally wrote him off in the pre-draft process. And full transparency, guys, I suck at quarterbacks. I just don't. It's such a nebulous position to prospect, to rank, to evaluate. Everybody sees what they want to see with a quarterback. And I just didn't know, what the deal was with Shuck. I didn't think he was a serious pick. I thought this was a poverty franchise making a poverty pick. And when he couldn't steal the job from Spencer Rattler for so long, I just kind of figured he had to be terrible. He's not terrible. He's actually pretty interesting. So, I do like Tyler Shuck. I want him on my teams. All right. RJ Harvey is next. We got to keep moving here, guys. Don't let me ramble on too long. RJ Harvey, man. I talked about him in the video this week. If you didn't see the video that I posted Thursday, I talked about the worst trades that I made this season. One of those trades involved RJ Harvey. The truth is I made a couple trades involving RJ Harvey that I'd like to go back in time and undo, because he's been really good. He's just been really, really fantastic since he became the starter. Not just in the box score. If you didn't see it, go on Twitter or YouTube or wherever. Please find the touchdown run that he had against the Jaguars, because it was kind of ridiculous. He broke through and 2 defenders came at him and just sandwiched him, and he just sort of bounced off of them and kept going. It showed off the strength. It showed off his speed to get around the edge and get to the end zone. Like, it was pretty sick. He's a great pass catcher. He's a red zone weapon. He's kind of become Sean Payton's like Joker type guy near the end zone. I know he's an older prospect. I don't think it matters. He's going to be 25 next year. That's a totally normal age for a top running back. He's still young. You know, he's younger than James Cook. He's younger than Jonathan Taylor. He's the same age as Breece Hall, basically. Yeah, he's a late bloomer. But we're seeing right now, he's an RB1 in fantasy right now. J.K. Dobbins is not under contract for next year. And honestly, I just don't see how you put this genie back in the bottle. Could you give away some of his carries that he gets between the 20s to some other capable running back that's not Jaleel McLaughlin? Sure. That's definitely possible. It might even be probable. I don't think you're going to put him back into a 1B type of role. Like, they drafted him to be this guy, and he's doing it. He's delivering on that. Sean Payton loves the guy. So this is real. I posted a poll on Twitter earlier today. Would you rather have RJ Harvey or Quinshon Judkins in Dynasty? Last I checked, that was like a dead heat 50-50. I'm kind of leaning RJ Harvey, if I'm being honest with you. I think he is easily a top 15 running back in Dynasty, maybe top 12. He could be top 12. As soon as we figure out, or somebody tells me what the heck is going on with Bucky Irving and where we should rank Breece Hall, knowing he's probably going to be stuck on the Jets again next year, and where we should rank Quinshon Judkins, knowing his offense sucks and his leg is broken, I don't know. But he's somewhere in the Judkins, Bucky, Breece, Saquon, Barkley universe of running backs. And he might be a huge buy because I just don't know if people think of him that way yet. Next, we have Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne is not really a riser based on what he did this week. He's not even really a riser based on what he did against the Jets, even though that was pretty amazing. He had crazy stat. He had 3 career receiving touchdowns going into that Jets game, and then he caught 3 touchdowns in the Jets game. He matched his career total in one game. The reason he's a riser for me is just the trajectory he's on. It has been since, I want to say, the 2022 season that Travis Etienne has actually made it through an entire year without getting hurt or like falling off a cliff in terms of his efficiency. He's actually just looked fantastic all season, which is not something that I expected. I guess you can give some credit to Liam Cohn. He's probably running something that's a little bit more running back friendly than previously, not health wise, but just efficiency wise. Bashal Tutin is hurt. He's done for the regular season. He kind of lost all the momentum that he had. So Etienne, for me, he's like right on that verge where I would not trade a first round pick for him. I don't even know if I would trade the 112 for Travis Etienne because he is a free agent and there's still uncertainty there. But he's right on that verge for me as a top 75 asset on the late 1, early 2 edge for me. And I think the most likely outcome for him is that he gets re-signed by this team and has a similar role next season. I think that's the most likely outcome. I think there's risk that he could go elsewhere. And I mean, no guarantee that would be a bad thing, but most likely this is the best spot for him. And there's a chance that he could come back next year and Bashal Tutin could be another year better. And we could see that little 50-50 split that was starting to form start to creep back. So there's some risk, but he seems like a guy that's going to be, like a 3rd round redraft pick next season. I think that's rational. I did see that there's allegedly no knee damage for Judkins, still an ankle dislocation and a fibula fracture. That's still not that's not a nothing injury. That's still pretty serious. I don't know if it's a guarantee that he's going to be good for next year, even without knee damage. I mean, he'll play, but I don't know if he'll be effective. I haven't decided how far I'm knocking him yet. I don't know. But we can't just completely ignore the injury. I think it matters. Blanca Shock. How do I feel about Woody Marks? To be honest with you, I think Woody Marks sucks. I think he's awful. I would sell him in Dynasty for pretty much any 2nd round pick. We see Jawar Jordan come in and do the same thing that we've seen from Woody Marks. Like, he's just not. He ranks basically at the bottom of the league in like every notable category for running back success in terms of breaking tackles, yards after contact, yards per carry, like everything. He's not good. He's old and he's pretty bad, and he's probably going to get replaced. At the very least, he's going to be in like a committee of some sort. I think he's just a total landmine type of asset. And I think it's unfortunate he got hurt because I think it kind of killed the sell window for him. But yeah, last two risers, and then we'll jump to the fallers. Two rookies here that have shown some signs of life here late in the season. You know, it sucks when you bury some rookies prematurely, and then they finally show you like, oh yeah, this is what I've been waiting for. And then you feel stupid for having discounted them. But just like when it takes so long, it's kind of hard to predict at all. Trey Harris has slowly and steadily started to get his route rate up. He's still fourth among the wide receivers on the Chargers, but he was not fourth in usage for the Chargers. He did end up with 4 catches for 54 yards. He actually had more yardage than Ladd McConkey in this game. He just looks decent. Like, I mean, he looks like a solid wide receiver. He's not going to have the efficiency metrics to back it up. His rookie season on paper is going to look awful for what he did, you know, from where he was drafted. But don't be surprised if Keenan Allen goes in the offseason and we see Trey Harris, you know, his utilization jump. This offense gets healthier. The tackles get healthier. And all of a sudden he becomes like a primary vertical threat for this team. I think it's just something we should leave the light on for. So he's in my late second tier. He's not a guy I'm going crazy for. He's not a high priority acquisition for me, but just kind of like hey, this guy still exists. He still has theoretically some use in the future. He's not just a total nothing, a total bust of a player. And then kind of same deal for Terrence Ferguson. He benefits from an injury to first Tyler Higbee and then to Devontae Adams. With Devontae Adams out against the Seahawks, Ferguson, I don't have the route data in front of me. I forgot to pull it, but he was much more involved in the 2 tight end sets, even in some 11 personnel stuff. He ends up with 4 targets. He has 3 catches. He has a touchdown in the game. He had another touchdown that got called back in the game that shouldn't have been called back for a legal man downfield. He just looks pretty good and athletic when he's out there. I love the fact that he is, you know, on this team attached to Sean McVay. I think that if they run it back next year with Adams and Puka, that's going to cap his upside a little bit in the short term. But he's just a really interesting guy to stash, knowing that he's attached to such a good coach and play caller in Sean McVay. Obviously, Stafford will be gone at some point, but yeah, he's a guy to leave the light on for in tight end premium leagues. I think he's a guy you could try to get thrown into deals. People that have him might be a little bit impatient. So, yeah, somebody to keep an eye on, I guess, as a dynasty riser. We'll flip over to the fallers here. Jackson 32, I'm going to be honest. I don't really do start-sit questions. I don't think I'm particularly good at them. I don't have the matchups in front of me. Well, I know Brissett plays the Bengals. I don't know how that, you know, looks for him versus Shuck and who he's playing. I would try the Underdog fantasy rankings videos that they do, or you could go to like the consensus rankings on Fantasy Pros, or Dynasty Daddy actually aggregates projections and rankings from different sites, and it actually has a start sit tool to tell you like, here's the lineup that we would play. So I like those tools. I don't have a great process for start sits, and usually when I just like, you know, try to say I know ball and go against the projections, I usually just end up shooting myself in the foot. So take that with a grain of salt. Let's continue here. Over to the fallers. Bit of a longer list. I'm going to try to move more quickly, though. Some of these are pretty straightforward. The first is Patrick Mahomes. We haven't done a show since Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL. Absolutely crazy that the Chiefs are not going to be in the playoffs this year and that this is how it happens. I mean, it absolutely sucks for anybody to tear their ACL. Obviously, it's just a little bit surreal when it's a guy that's like, you know, one of the best players in football and has been so dependable for so long. I think this stat is correct. I saw somewhere like Tom Brady tore his ACL in his 9th season after winning 3 Super Bowls, and Patrick Mahomes tears his ACL in his 9th season after winning 3 Super Bowls. Kind of uncanny. Weird stuff going on there. But anyway, I dropped Mahomes. I think most likely he'll be back for week 1 next year. He already had surgery, and it seems like he's off to a good start in his recovery. I would assume that the rushing is going to be down for Mahomes, at least for next year. That's just how these things tend to go. So where I've moved him right now is to quarterback 8 in Dynasty. He's my 21st overall player. I think there's just kind of a big drop off in the elite assets where I just don't know who you would feel great about. Like, do you really feel great taking Justin Jefferson over him with all the uncertainty around him? Do you feel great taking Jackson Dart over him? Not really. You know, Trevion Henderson, Tedero McMillan. I think you can certainly talk about those players. But for me, you know, push comes to shove, I'll take the 101 over Mahomes. I'll take Achane. I'll take Drake London. I'll take Joe Burrow. I'll take Genty. I'll take Herbert even. I would take Justin Herbert over Mahomes. But I'm not going to drop him out of the second round. I just think that's too far for a guy that we know is one of the best in the game. This is probably not going to severely hamper him for a long time. Jalen Hurts is a bit of a faller for me. Not a massive faller for me, but just I'm an Eagles. Okay, look, I'm an Eagles fan. I like Jalen Hurts. I mean, I appreciate what he's done for our franchise, and obviously I have some very fond memories of games that Jalen Hurts has played. But we need to be so honest about what Jalen Hurts is as a quarterback. He is not an elite quarterback. He's been an elite fantasy asset. He's had elite results in the NFL for a multitude of reasons, largely due to supporting cast and some creative play callers. As a talent, Jalen Hurts is certainly not a bad quarterback, but he is very limited. And I'm not saying this is likely. If I thought it was likely, I wouldn't still have him ranked as a top 16, 17 asset. But I do think there is at least some world where Jalen Hurts could get sort of Kyler Murray'd to an extent, where he looks like this guy that you look at and you're like, yeah, obviously this guy's going to be a starter forever. But it's quick think about how things felt, you know, after they lost the Dallas game, 3-game skid. People were kind of calling for his head, had multiple bad games in a row. People were like, should the Eagles draft a quarterback? There's just, his brand is not as strong, you know, as a Lamar Jackson, as a Joe Burrow. And I think that matters. I think it matters for his market value and perception. And I think genuinely, like, it's not impossible that Jalen Hurts is not the starting quarterback of the Eagles for, like, you know, for a long time. Like, if they have a first round exit this year, miss the playoffs, or have a first round exit next year, he suffers a bad injury, I think the team could get a little restless and could look elsewhere for a quarterback. That's all I'm saying. It's a nuanced discussion. There are Jalen Hurts truthers. There are haters. I'm in the middle. But I think in Dynasty, when we are trying to think about our long-term outlooks and like what other people think of our players, he just feels like a guy that could be a little bit soured on quickly. And he hasn't put up the quite as insane results this year. The tush push has not been as effective. They're not running as many of those sneaks in general at the goal line. So you can lose some production there as well. So Jalen Hurts, a little bit of a faller, still my QB6, still top 20 asset. Rashee Rice is also a faller he's tied to Patrick Mahomes. Rashee Rice's value is directly tied to Mahomes. Mahomes is going to be back and hopefully playing well, but we need to understand, guys, that Rashee Rice is not like the other elite wide receivers in Dynasty. He's kind of, if I may, he's kind of the Jalen Hurts of fantasy wide receivers, where it's like, yeah, we know this guy puts up points, but like we kind of know he's not like the other guys. Like Rashee Rice is not Drake London. He's not Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's not CeeDee Lamb. He's not Jamar Chase. He's not Puka Nacua. He's not those guys. He is a He is a good zone beating wide receiver who is a good yards after the catch weapon, succeeds near the line of scrimmage, pretty terrible against man coverage, can be schemed out of different matchups. And his production is predicated on the Chiefs wanting to get the ball in his hands as much as possible because he is currently their best playmaker. And the reason he appears on this list is because I've been, looking at the rookie class a little bit, thinking about the rookie class, thinking about the Chiefs and like what went wrong with their offense this year and what they need as a team. And the fact that they're going to have like the 11th or 12th overall pick in the draft. And I thought, what would happen to Rashee Rice's dynasty value if the Kansas City Chiefs draft Carnell Tate in the first round, or they draft, Mekhi Lemon in the first round, they draft Jordan Tyson in the first round? Like, what would happen to the value of Rashee Rice at that point? And the answer is it would plummet because he would immediately not be the best wide receiver on his team, and he would not be the guy that they're force feeding 30% of the first read targets to. So he is volatile. If this offense stays the same, or Kelsey just retires and they bring in some secondary wide receiver, he's going to project. I mean, he's going to be a top 10 projected wide receiver again next year. It's kind of similar to, you think of we talked about Chase Brown earlier. It's kind of like that, where the status quo is really good for him, but most things that could change or be different would be bad. So just want to put that out there. Didn't we do this already with Worthy? I mean, are we actually comparing Xavier Worthy as a wide receiver to the top wide receivers in this class? I would not do that. Tate, Lemon, and Tyson are, just exponentially, not even close, better wide receivers than Xavier Worthy. And more importantly, they're like guys that can win in more traditional ways that currently nobody on the Chiefs can win. Like, there is no one on the Chiefs that can win, especially I think Carnell Tate especially would be like the perfect fit for this team, because they do not have an X receiver, someone that can actually win against press coverage, win out wide. That's what this team is missing. You saw it in the Texans game where nobody could get open. Nobody could get open against that team. It was just a disaster. So I don't think that would be anything like Xavier Worthy. It obviously would depend on who the player was, but I just think there's risk there. They didn't draft Xavier Worthy in the first round this year. That was 2 years ago. So I don't remember who they took this past year, but it was not a wide receiver. And also, if the wide receiver you draft in the first round sucks, you kind of need another wide receiver. And I'm an Eagles fan. We drafted Jalen Reagor in the first round, and we drafted Devonta Smith in the first round the year after. If you draft a guy that sucks, you still have a need at that position. So it was 2 years ago, though. I'm not saying they're going to draft a wide receiver. I'm just saying that Rashee Rice is a product of his situation more than any other wide receiver that is in the top 15 wide receivers. And I think people should care in Dynasty that his value is the most fragile of anybody in that range. That's all. Emeka Egbuka is a faller. I don't even know where he's going to fall to. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this guy. He ran less routes than Jalen McMillan this week. Unless he is like hiding some injury that we don't know about, I can't really make any sense of this. Because if you are an Emeka Egbuka hater, if you're a guy that's never been in on him, you can say, there's a very clear picture you can paint here. He was productive when Evans and McMillan and sometimes Godwin were off the field. He was only successful because there was no competition, and now those guys are back, and he's just, a mid wide receiver. He's not anything special. He's a beta, just like Ohio State when he wasn't the main guy. You can totally paint that picture if you want to. It's very easy to do. It doesn't change the fact that he had the games that he had that where he was insanely good. And that when you actually like go and look at the film, that he just like was getting open and winning routes. And Matt Harmon, for example, is one of the guys that I like as a wide receiver evaluator, looked at Egbuka and said, this guy is, having one of the best seasons of any rookie, wide receiver or not, and is constantly winning on all these different routes. He can win everywhere, outside, inside. It's very weird that we went from that guy to whatever's going on now. I don't have an answer for it. He's a faller. He has to be a faller. I don't know how far he needs to be a faller. So that's a work in progress. If anybody has answers for Egbuka and what's going on, I really do think he's an awesome player. I really do. So it's weird. It's very weird. I'd probably be more inclined to buy low on him than to like panic sell him. But yeah, it's a scary proposition right now, especially with Baker just looking so terrible. Okay. Quinshon Judkins, he's a faller. He broke his leg. This absolutely sucks. It was a gruesome injury. Luckily, as we've talked about, apparently no ligament damage. So hopefully it's a clean recovery and he's good to go for week 1 next season. I mean, that's what you hope for. I can't value him like he's just going to be 100% in week 1 because it's not that simple. But I'm certainly going to try to knock him as little as I can. That being said, there are other legitimate knocks on Judkins, which is that like he hasn't been very effective over the last half the season. His offense is terrible, and he's not particularly involved as a pass catcher. So I think the injury just sort of makes a lot of the other aspects of his profile less appealing. And so for now, I mean, he's certainly going to fall outside my top 50. But again, I don't know where the fall stops. There's several running backs that need to fall that I don't know how they should be valued. Bucky, Judkins. And then you have guys like Harvey that are on the rise. And I think you have to kind of make your own decisions there about how to value those players. But we'll talk about Bucky in a second. Like I said with Judkins, it's not just the injury. There are legit concerns about his situation, his role. He has to be a very efficient rusher in an offense that can get him a lot of touchdown opportunities, or he is simply not going to be a fantasy star at running back. And let's just be so honest. When is the next time that you think the Browns will be projected as a top half offense, scoring offense in the NFL? If they take Fernando Mendoza and he turns out to be a hit, I guess that could be soon. If they pass on quarterback again and they try to make Deshaun Watson work or something, or they try to stick with Shedeur Sanders, I don't think it's happening anytime soon. So might just be a bit of a stay away spot for me, but we'll see where his price settles in. Cole, I was using this excuse of Baker being injured the whole time that Egbuka was struggling when he was running all the routes. But Baker being injured does not explain why he is being taken off the field for Jalen McMillan and Chris Godwin to run routes. That's the part that I can't explain. I could even understand Godwin with the veteran deference and the chemistry with Baker. But the idea that Jalen McMillan, who played like 6 decent games as a rookie, has only been in the league 1 year longer than Egbuka, had less draft capital invested, is coming off of a broken neck, and within like 3 weeks is running more routes than Egbuka, that makes absolutely zero sense to me. And there is just absolutely no part of me that thinks Jalen McMillan is a better wide receiver than Egbuka. So I don't know. Maybe the hamstring is a thing. Maybe he's not healthy. Maybe, I don't know. I really don't have many theories. So that's where we're at with Egbuka. Ladd McConkey actually had his best game in a while, so it might be weird to see him here. This is just like making a correction on what he has been for much of the season, and it just happens to be this week. But even in this game, scores a touchdown. That was nice. He had the dream matchup, and he came through with at least a decent fantasy day. Not a great one, but the target share, man, 20.6% target share. I went to bat for this guy all offseason. I said, look at this rookie year, 1,100 yards, extremely efficient per route. He wins on all the routes. Matt Harmon thinks he's elite. The numbers say he's elite. The per route metrics, like watch him on film. He's always open. I don't understand why Ladd McConkey's target share has dwindled so much. I still think when I watch Chargers games, like I swear Ladd McConkey's open like almost every single play. But the ball is going to Quentin Johnson. It's going to Trey Harris. It's going to Keenan Allen. Sometimes it's going to Oronde Gadsden. He should probably be a follower too. This team is not exactly what it wants to be because the tackles are hurt. They don't have a lot of pass protection. But theoretically, like, shouldn't that benefit Ladd McConkey even more than these vertical threat wide receivers? I don't know what's going on. But at this point, with the role that he plays, the target share he's getting, it's pretty hard for me to continually value him ahead, like far ahead of guys in this mold, you know, like a Devonta Smith, like a Jordan Addison, like a T. Higgins. I subjectively think that he is better than some of those guys. He's certainly younger than those guys. So I'm going to keep him ahead. But, you know, like I think Ladd McConkey versus Zay Flowers is like a legitimate question. Zay Flowers has had a much better target share this season. He's been much more efficient per route. Ladd, ironically, on the offense that everybody thought wanted to be run heavy, has actually benefited from running tons and tons of routes on a team that threw the ball a lot. I think the results are going to be better next year with a healthy offensive line. You can see what Ladd McConkey did for a month-long stretch when the tackle, when Joe Alt was healthy, when Herbert was slinging the ball. He was leading in targets, but it was still like 23, 24%. But there was enough volume there that he was putting up big games. That's still possible. And I certainly like his quarterback situation, but he's just not like he's not like on that cusp of elite wide receivers. I would rather have Chris Olave at this point. I'd rather roll the dice on Travis Hunter, to be honest. And I'm kind of 50-50 on like Zay Flowers versus Ladd McConkey. So he's outside my top 40 now. He is like in the wide receiver 16, 17, 18 conversation. And it sucks. I have a lot of Ladd McConkey, so this is certainly not a biased take. I would love for him to be higher. All right, this is starting to bum me out. We're going to talk about Bucky Irving, who has been another really disappointing asset. And it's been really disappointing because of the way that it played out, where he looked like a massive win, and then he got hurt. And then he came back, and I thought he could be our savior down the stretch, and he's just been really disappointing. This is the best way that I can parse the situation. Bucky Irving comes into the year, tons and tons of camp hype. He is the clear and undisputed bell cow of this team. He had at least 20 touches, I think, in all of the first 4 games. He was getting touches inside of the 10-yard line. He was getting a lot of receiving work. He had like 4 catches, 5 catches, 4 catches. He was doing everything for this team. He gets hurt. It's a long recovery. He has his weird like mental health journey. Somewhere along the way, the team decided that they wanted to use multiple backs, maybe just to keep him healthy. Maybe they decided they liked what they were getting from those other backs, specifically Sean Tucker. Maybe Bucky is still not totally 100% healthy, and that's part of it. But he comes back now, and he is by far the leading rusher in terms of attempts. The problem is that he keeps getting pulled off the field for Rachaad White in passing situations, and then he keeps getting pulled off the field for Sean Tucker in goal line touches. That is not a recipe for fantasy success. That is a recipe for Kenneth Walker. It is a disaster for fantasy value. He's getting all of these empty touches. He's like, I don't know. He's like Bill's Devin Singletary. Like it's terrible right now. And he's not even efficient on the ground. So I'm kind of hedging with Bucky Irving. Like if what we're seeing right now is what Bucky Irving is forever, he should be worth like a second round pick, like an early second round pick. However, I happen to think Bucky Irving is really, really good. And I think it's possible Todd Bowles could get fired. I think it's possible that the offensive coordinator could be fired. I think that it's possible Bucky's just not healthy and they're trying to take stuff off his plate. I think there's a lot of reasons this could be happening. And I'm not going to just totally freak out over a few games. So I'm kind of trying to find a safe middle ground, because I do think there is still a world where Bucky Irving next season could be a really, really good running back producer. I don't think he's just doomed to this exact role that he has right now forever, because I do think he's really good. But it's incredibly alarming, and I would not want to be trading anything of massive value for him right now. That's just how it is. So he's going to land in that RB 13 to 15, 16 range for me. We'll see how he compares to somebody like RJ Harvey, Saquon Barkley, Quinshon Judkins. Clearly, I have some work to do in that range, but I would still rather have him than like an older guy like Josh Jacobs. I'd still rather have him to somebody like Travis Etienne, who's like been really hot right now, but is older, not under contract right now. It's tricky. It's a very tricky situation to parse. And I think I'd be lying if I said it's not a bunch of guesswork, but I just want to leave the door open to get back to the player that we saw in his rookie year and in the first 4 weeks of this season. I think that is an upside worth chasing. We've got one more Buccaneer on the list, Baker Mayfield. He's obviously not healthy this year, guys. He's obviously not, but I do think that there's something to the idea that he was simply never as good as people made him out to be, and that there is some fragility with Baker Mayfield. Like if he had continued playing the way he played last year, he probably would have gotten himself an extension after this season. He's not going to get an extension after this season. I'm not going to say he was like entirely a product of Liam Cohn, but I think this offense, it's like pretty clear that this offense without Liam Cohn has been far, far worse and has struggled far more. And the results just aren't there. And if you're like a 30-something-year-old quarterback who's not getting the job done, it's a slippery slope, into becoming Geno Smith. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying he's bad. Like, I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback, but he has to be a faller. He's not giving you the top 5, even top 10 production. He's not young. I just don't see any reason why he should be valued anywhere near where he was valued last offseason. So, give me Jared Goff pretty easily over Baker Mayfield. Give me like any top 8, top 9 first round pick, maybe even top 10 over Baker. CJ Stroud easily, Dak Prescott easily. Right. That's kind of what I'm saying with Baker Mayfield. I think I would rather have Cam Ward at this point. And I think Baker, it starts to be a conversation between Baker and Sam Darnold. And I think I would rather have Baker because they're both somewhat fragile. Baker has shown us a higher fantasy ceiling, even outside, even without Liam Cohn. We saw some of those highs earlier this year. So we'll keep him there above. We'll keep him above Darnold for sure. All right. Tua, last guy. He's lost his starting job. I would not be surprised if Tua is never a starting quarterback in the NFL again, at least not on purpose. He is not going to start again this year for the Dolphins. He's probably never going to start again for them. He has a massive contract hit, cap hit. I don't see how they can even get him off the team. So I feel like he could get Kirk Cousins'd in that he could end up being stuck on the team as a backup quarterback to whoever they decide to bring in, because there's no legitimate way to get rid of his contract. Like, they would have to give away assets to send him to another team. I don't know if they're willing to do that. Maybe they are. I don't know what team would want to take him on, though. I don't see why a team would want to bring on him with that contract to be a starter for them. So it might just be over. Like, it might just be completely over for Tua. Not a guy that I'm trying to speculate on and like buy low or anything like that. Just, if you have him on your team, it's unfortunate. If somebody wants to give you a 3rd round pick because, he's a young quarterback and it's super flex and, he'll figure it out, he'll find a job. Please take it. Cause like, there's just a good chance that he doesn't find that job. And I would not want to deal with that headache personally. So that's the end of the list. Guys, a bit of a long recap this week. We had to get through 2 weeks. Appreciate you hanging in with me there. Hopefully you found the information useful and interesting. If you are not a subscriber, go down below, subscribe to the channel. If you don't mind, I will be back at some point this week. I don't know exactly when. It's not going to be on Christmas with a video. We'll see what the topic is. I'm between a few topics. Obviously this season's mostly a wrap. So we're looking ahead. Maybe we're talking strategy, rankings, whatever, but something of interest, something to keep you entertained, maybe help you cope with a devastating semifinal loss or keep your mind off of a finals coming up on Sunday. But either way, guys, appreciate you tuning in, and I will talk to you all soon. Enjoy Monday Night Football and watching possibly Phillip Rivers' last career start. See ya.